Hello, I am Deacon Hilary Bangwich here, and this is another episode of my efforts in trying to live the Benedictine spirituality at home and at work. Today, in this episode, I would like to chat a little bit about relationships and discipline. And I find this very relevant and very important especially in family life, in work life, in home life, and to see how the Benedictine spirituality gives us guidance in these areas of our lives. And the first thing is that in a previous episode, we spoke about stability, how important stability is in the Benedictine spirituality. And I think this applies specifically to relationships as well. It is important to be able to form stable relationships. In a monastery, it takes a long while for somebody to be accepted as a monk, but once they're there permanently. And in that community, there is a stability of relationships for over many years. I think this gives us a challenge to make sure that our homes, our family life is a stable family life. That we try to inculcate our family and the children and the spouse and extended family members to have a stability of relationship. Even if not everyone is living in the same premises, it is important to maintain those relationships. It is important to have stable family relationships. It is also very important to make sure that you have stable relationships with some prayer community. One of the things I was thinking about is in ministry or at your parish, wherever you practice your ministry work, your community work, that it is that you are trying to have stable relationships within your community, within your prayer community, within your ministry. My wife and myself started a prayer group in 2015, and we have been trying to meet weekly. And next year, 2025, it will be 10 years of meeting over most Mondays and sharing our journey with Lectio Divina, which is one of the practices of the Benedictine spirituality. And that stability of that prayer group, over a period of time, you build community. Community takes stability and community takes time. And the community is the basis of a monastery. So you cannot live the Benedictine spirituality unless you are also part of community. Now, in community, we spoke about family in community, but there's also community in ministry, and there is community at work. How can we transform our places of work into a community? I believe that one of the challenges in the modern world, in today's world, is where you work very much at home sometimes, and you work on your own. You freelance, but it is important for you to have some sort of community. And even though I spend a lot of my time working on my own, creating my pastoral content for online, I also am actively working in a physical parish, and in that parish I am also building community. I believe that even when we are working outside of a workplace, that you're working at home or you're working by yourself or you're freelancing or you're traveling, that you must make efforts that be also part of a community. I believe also that to recognize that there is a need for discipline in doing all of this. discipline is a very challenging discipline, really, because it is that you want to stay with the things that you are supposed to do. Remember, in one of the previous episodes, we spoke about a structured life, and we spoke that our life must be broken up, our day must be broken up into compartments where we have periods of work, periods of prayer, and periods of study. One of the things I have found in order to maintain this is not taking on more that you can do. Today, in a world of everything has to be productivity, everything has to be how can you squeeze the most out of every hour and how to be more productive, it is important to know that you can only do so much. I have found that I must make a special effort in order to keep my day between those three large buckets of prayer, work, and study. And the challenge I find most of all is not taking on and adding to your work area. That it is so easy to accept responsibility. Can you do this? Can you do this? And you say yes. As a deacon, you are called to serve, but you're also called to serve within that structure that you have time for work, for prayer, and for study. As a family person as well, it is so easy to get caught up that you want to get ahead in life, you want to improve the quality of your life, you want to have money for travel and all of these things. It is so easy to get caught up in the trap of productivity. And this is why this discipline, to make sure that you are following your discipline. In one of the previous episodes, we also said that part of this discipline is using the liturgy of the hours, making sure that you put aside time for morning prayer, for evening prayer, and probably for night prayer and midday prayer. But you start especially with morning prayer and evening prayer. And to do this, it is good to use the devices, the apps that they are available now, so that you do not necessarily have to have your book with all your ribbons, but you can use the app. I use Universalis app, and it is very good. I believe that those two factors, those two components of relationship and discipline, they are very, very important. I would like to encourage you as well, in your home life, in your work life, how can you ensure that you are following the discipline of making sure that your day is well structured, making sure that you are not taking on more duties than you can reasonably handle, and to be gentle with yourself and to know your limitations, know what you are capable of doing, and making sure that you have time for prayer. It is important to spend time in prayer, and all of that comes under discipline. And then under relationships, that whole component of stability is so important. It is so important for us to have stable relationships. Now, to have stable relationships, it means having time, quality time to put in where you have quality time to put in to making sure that you can build relationships by listening, by empathetic communication, by making sure that there is time for family bonding, there's a time for a family meal, there's a time for a family get together, and making and putting traditions in your life, rituals that we meet every so often, or we celebrate a birthday. We must remember that ancient monastic tradition was meant to be a lay person movement. It wasn't meant for clerics. It was meant for lay people who wanted to leave the world and live a special life of holiness, of growing in their spirituality. I believe that we can do that as well without necessarily within the walls of a monastery, but within our walls of our homes and our workplaces. We can also make it into a lay person movement when we are focused on building relationships. Especially at work, sometimes it is important to make sure that the work is not a toxic place. It is a place where the spirit of the kingdom lives. That no one wants to be left behind. That everyone wants to contribute. Everyone is made space so that they can fulfill their potential and that they can contribute to the well-being of the organization. I hope today's episode will challenge you in some way and ask yourself, what are you doing to make sure that those two elements of the Benedictine spirituality, the element of relationships and the importance of relationships, and the element of discipline, and how can you put those two elements together to ensure that our structured life, our ordered life of prayer, work, and study is manifested in our lives. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to hearing your comments on the episode, and also for you to be able to suggest other things and the challenges you are also facing in trying to live a Benedictine spirituality at home and at work. If you've just joined us, go into the platform and look at previous episodes and bring yourself up to this episode. Goodbye for now, and thank you for joining me.